Probably the main function of the second episode is to modulate from the key of F major into D minor for the subject entry beginning in bar 36. While subject entries are not typically included in episodes, here the episode begins before the subject is concluded, with Bach using this figure from the subject's third bar as part of the structure of the episode's middle part. The vertical spacing of this first inversion C dominant 7th chord is relatively high in the texture, perhaps influencing Bach's choice of a descending episode. The dominant 7th's resolution also appears to have influenced the contours of the episode's three parts. The dominant 7th's leading note resolution to F, for example, begins in ascent, which Bach continues to F major's third. The dominant 7th degree, part of the subject's figure, resolves to A, which Bach ties into the following bar, and the dominant's 5th degree Bach ties at the top of the texture, which he then resolves as a 9/8 suspension in the following bar. The ascending figure, moving quarter note E, F, G, A 8th notes in the lowest part, Bach moves down a step in the following two bars, now moving quarter note D, E, F, G 8th notes. This C sharp appears to begin the same idea, moving to this D after an octave leap, but then descends. Why Bach chose here to not complete the established ascending figure can perhaps be explained with the following points. He wanted a descent to the dominant pedal, and the change of register could simply be because he wanted the pedal closer to the upper parts. The following subject entry in D minor beginning in bar 40 at this higher register remains within the bass stave, whereas if it was at the lower A octave would descend below. And this figure's contour also recalls the upbeat and first bar of a subject entry. The resulting progression suggested by this bass line moves as a partial cycle of fifths, with the chords in the episode's first, third and fifth bars sounding in first inversion. The first inversion B-flat chord is also the pivot, sounding as the subdominant in F major and the submediant in D minor. The progression concludes on D minor before moving through D minor's subdominant to its dominant, sounding over the pedal's first bar. In this bar also, a D minor subject entry begins in the texture's top part. As mentioned, the episode's middle part uses this figure from the subject's third bar. After occurring as part of the subject, beginning with B flat, Bach begins the next two occurrences on A and G. He also ties the figure's initial note from the dotted quarter note in the preceding bar. Over the tonic and subdominant chords, he uses this contour, which prolongs the notes F and G respectively with lower and upper neighbour notes. Over the first bar of the dominant pedal, Bach uses this figure, which initially prolongs the note A with a B-flat upper neighbour note, before descending by step to a D note in the following bar. In this way, the embellished F-G-A ascent takes the middle part from the third of D minor to the root note of its dominant 7th chord. As we'll see, the middle part's contour moves as a series of sixths with the top part, and as a 5/3 intervallic pattern with the lowest part. The top part uses the figure initially used in the first episode, and Bach also retains the 9/8 suspension of that figure, with the top line moving as a descent from G to C sharp. The initial tied notes of this line and the lowest note of the figure's descent move as a partial cycle of fifths, with the lowest note of the descent sounding the underlying chord's 5th degree. Bach also here uses this common suspension decoration to sound A, the 5th degree of the D minor chord, as he doesn't use the 16th note figure in this bar, probably because he already has the embellished F-G-A ascent moving in 16th notes. Along with moving as a series of sixths with the middle part, some of which are staggered because of the suspensions, the top part also moves as a 3/8 intervallic pattern with the lowest part, concluding with a third in bar 36. Probably the main function of the Fugue's third and final episode is to reinstate the tonic key of F major, which is modulated into in the episode's initial bar, where the tonic of G minor also sounds as F major's supertonic. The Fugue's tonic key is obviously restored for the work's final cadence in bar 72, but also for the final subject entry beginning at the episode's conclusion in bar 64. To construct this episode, Bach essentially uses two figures: the 16th note figure, which is similar to the figure in bar 3 of both the subject and variant subject, and this 8th note figure, which is an inversion of the figure from the subject's first bar. In the episode's first 4 bars, Bach uses the 8th note figure in the lowest part to ascend from the 2nd degree of F major to its 4th degree in bar 59. Against this ascent into top part, the 16th note figure, with its initial note tied, moves in contrary motion with the lowest part, descending from the note B flat to F, with the tied B flat becoming the 7th degree of C dominant 7th harmony in bar 57, and the tied A resolving as a 7/6 suspension over first inversion supertonic G minor 7th harmony. Through these bars, the lowest and top parts interact as a 3/7 intervallic pattern, while the middle part, also using the 16th note figure, sounds with its second note the 5th degree of the underlying chords, while the dotted quarter note following these figures sounds the 3rd. Beginning in bar 60 in the middle part, Bach again uses the 8th note ascent, moving to B flat, but begins it on C. The concluding B flat is again tied to the same 16th note figure in bar 63, again sounding as part of C dominant 7th harmony. In the top part, beginning in bar 60, an 8th note figure doubles the middle part in thirds, but the top part, after the middle part stops its ascent on B flat, continues up to the note G, which is tied to resolve as a 9/8 suspension over the episode's concluding bar. The suspension is included within the contour of the 16th note figure, along with the variant subject entry using a 16th note upbeat. Excluding the G suspended note, the top part's figure in bar 64 is the same as this figure, and could have therefore been used to follow on in the middle part from this figure. Bach instead separates these figures, as he did here, so that this 16th note figure ascends after its conclusion to the 3rd degree of the underlying F major chord. The third between this A note and the F in the lowest part is also the same as here. The 7th interval between the top part's figure and the C 8th note in the lowest part is here inverted at the octave to sound as a 2nd. The 5th between the middle part C and the lowest part's F is also here inverted at the octave to sound as a 4th. The 5th relationship is then re-established here when the figures return to their original vertical alignment. Here Bach uses this figure, which is reminiscent of this figure from the counter subject, as it also descends to the leading note here in the key of F major. Through these bars, the intervallic pattern between the top and lowest parts moves as a series of thirds to conclude with a final 8 in bar 64. Bach then appears to have begun this episode's construction with two ideas. The first, the 16th note figure interacting as a 7th above this 8th note figure, both of which result from the voice leading of the preceding G minor 7th chord, and the second, the 16th note figure interacting as a 5th above this 8th note figure, both resulting from the voice leading of the preceding C dominant 7th harmony. Bach then inverts both figure combinations at the octave and then returns the second combination to its original vertical alignment for the episode's final bar, and returns only the initial 16th note figure, now sounding over E, to its original location in the episode's penultimate bar. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. See you next time.